Well, good morning. Thank you very much. My name is Ilak Diaz. I am the Executive Director and founder of Liter of Light and a Zayed Sustainability Prize winner of 2015. I would like to take a little bit of your time and tell you of our story, specifically with some of the milestones that brought us here today. Energy poverty, mostly in Asia, is a 700 million people problem. Many of them women and children. And one of the things that exacerbated it for me was almost 10 years ago, actually it's the 90th anniversary of Typhoon Haiyan. Typhoon Haiyan is still on the record books as one of the most violent storms, one of the highest wind speeds ever recorded, the first category 5, really to hit an urban area called Tacloban. 300 kilometers per hour is like strapping yourself to the front of an airplane at terminal velocity or during takeoff. 10,000 people lost their lives and more than 4 million houses were destroyed within 24 hours. When I was sent over there, my background really is as an urban planner. I called back my professor and I said, the roads are littered with trees. There's not going to be electricity here for at least 4 to 5 months. 20-foot waves had covered the city, and this is the cause for most of the deaths. What do you want me to do here? And he said, take a piece of paper. I said, I'm on the phone. So I took a piece of paper. Do you have a ball pen? And I said, yes, I do. So I put a point on the middle of the paper, like he told me, and says, what do you see? And I told him, well, I see the dot. What else would there be? And says, well, that's your limitation. You're looking at the problem, but what about the rest of the white paper, right? What are the other possibilities that you could do in such an extreme situation? So walking around, we basically saw 2 soft drink plants that were inundated. And I remember looking at them and remembering simple high school, where optics, where if you put a bottle of water and you put light from the top, it will refract to the bottom. So we took these plastic bottles and we started sticking them on the rooftops of shanty areas. Remember, 4 million houses destroyed. One half on top and one half below, filled with water and a couple of drops of bleach. And this allowed refracted light from the top to be able to come in. But one of the biggest challenges for us was, what about night at light? This is where Liter of Light is started. We found out that it would take about 6 months for lights to come in the bulk that we wanted. Plus, we were told that 60 to 80% sometimes of the cost of moving emergency funds, moving humanitarian supplies from one place of the world to the other, was that expensive. And so what we did was we went to the next town that was producing solar toys, and we got LEDs from motorcycles, radio parts, and started building solar lights with the LEDs in the bottle. Very simple, but what was interesting here is we did not have a manufacturing plant. We were asking people to be able to assemble it by hand. 30 minutes would give 5 years of light. So instead of 5 months, we would only need 30 minutes to be able to produce lights. Over here, this was one of the main areas where there was very strong crimes against women and children. So the women would bring food and water from the distribution camp all the way to their tents. So they would pass through this area. So there was no light. But we used, of course, bamboo poles, as I said, LEDs from motorcycles, and simple radio parts. I can show you immediately what I'm talking about. What's interesting here is we started to see a very interesting model. And the interesting model here is corporates were donating food and water, but not light. A lot of the children there were having third-degree burns because light was caused by putting it in quarts of kerosene, putting a wick, and then sleeping with it in the tent. So the children would roll around. So we started getting plastic bottles, as I said, LEDs, bamboo or PVC, whatever we would get, and we would ask them to start building simple circuits. Okay, wait. So corporates, our business model was corporates would buy the parts, then they would assemble it as their CSR, and then we would give all of this to women in the communities. But the technology was something that we said if it could not be fixed with a simple screwdriver, it would be very difficult to maintain. So mobile chargers, street lights, lamps could be all fixed by hand. One of the most interesting thing there is this imported, patented, expensive to light up villages was also becoming a burden in other countries. Yes, you gave them light, but if you donated 1 million lights today, they were designed to break within a year or a year and a half. Most of the circuits are imprinted. There's no way for them to fix it. So after the lifespan of the solar lamp or the solar product, it will break down. There was no initiative really to start building it from the bottom up. And that's where Liter of Light came into the fore. We have empowered women to move away from kerosene. And now, instead of selling quarts of kerosene, where sometimes they take 4 hours to go to the city and 4 hours back every 2 weeks to fill a drum, often at 35% of the expense of their village to power their village, buying these expensive carbon-based fuels, they would now rent out solar lamps. So money was not going out anymore from the village by going solar. If it breaks, they can easily repair it with a screwdriver. Or their husbands can go to the nearest town and buy the parts. Interesting also is, if you needed to charge your mobile charger, they have a mobile charging system. Not necessarily to be able to do internet, but most of the women now, they exchange education through their phones. Because books sometimes are not as easily to maintain in tropical areas, they use phones to educate their children, or phones to be able to share information. But the most important part is 70% of crimes against women are because of our street lights. Our street lights basically are rented. In a way, the same way we pay our dues in the city, each one of us, to keep common public lights open, it's the same way they also collect money from each household to keep the streets lit. So what we basically created is a bottom-up approach to creating these solar cooperatives. One of the biggest and most important parts in our career was we were about four countries. We were in the Philippines, we were in Bangladesh, we were expanding into India, and of course in Malaysia. But the Zayed Sustainability Prize allowed us to expand to 32 countries. We were able to replicate this idea of not moving solar products, especially those that had a planned depreciation from one country to the next, but then start building them from within. So in Africa, they have their own solar production, solar panel production. In Kenya, in Colombia. So we did not have to move all the finished parts from China. We were starting to create this kind of economics or greening from the bottom up. Just to prove our point of how easy it was, the way that we did in the village, we actually challenged 2,300 Emirati children. And we said to them, why don't you spend 1 hour with us and we will teach you to make a solar lamp that will last for the next 5 years. And so, astonishingly, they all came and we were able to actually break the world record for the largest sustainability lesson. So, something that young people can create, everybody can be a change maker. We wanted that solar was not only from companies or donation from philanthropies, but it was something that empowered people, something that they can replicate. But the most important model here was something that they can take away from me. They don't have to be, I don't have to be in the middle to create that change. Sometimes we donate 100, 200 lights. When we come back, it's 600, 1,000. How is it even possible? It means that they're starting to replicate without us. You know, when I told you about 60 to 80% of humanitarian funds are sometimes used for transport of goods from one place to the other, the study said, why are we not putting that money in local productions of the same products? And so Liter of Light began that process. Today, as I said, who would have thought that an idea from one of the darkest moments from the Philippines would be in 32 countries around the world? Even in Brazil, we spend about 2 to 3 weeks every year, every 2 months going into the Amazon. And the nice thing there is we bring corporates to be able to make and at the same time distribute. So that's our business model. But all the lights are free to the women to exchange. So every kerosene lamp, we exchange it with a solar. How do we maintain helping 1 million people affected a year? So this is the other idea that we have, which is their husbands. So remember, transport is such an expensive part of maintaining all these lights. What we do is their husbands bring products to the main city almost every week, vegetables, fish. So they come all the way to the city, they unload their vegetables or fish to sell in the market. And what we do is we give any parts or repairs or needed by the women in the villages. So each country has about 350 women villages per country. We give all the parts to the husband, and the husband, with an empty load on their truck, because they've put down all their stuff, they bring all the parts to the villages. So we ourselves don't have to maintain all these lights. So it's really a bottom-up approach, hand-built. So let me show you a little bit of what Zayed Sustainability Prize has done for us in the Amazon. These are only one of so many stories we want to share, but let me play with this for you. Ah. Okay, I'm a millennium, not a millennial. If you can play this. So over here, we're teaching women in the Amazon. They only have about 4 hours of light because they run generator systems. So they only have gas for 4 hours. And the rest, they have to do in darkness. So sorry. Yeah, but I have a, okay. I have a, okay, I think I'll move forward. During COVID, or while it's playing, but during COVID, the truth is we almost went bankrupt. Remember, we work with corporates all over the world to be able to buy the parts, and at the same time, we charge 20, 25% for them to allow us to carry out the event. So we have income. It's not a charity. And at the same time, maintain those villages. And what happened is now I did not have access to schools, to charities. We were going broke. And I was watching this film called Light It Forward, Pay It Forward. I don't know if you've seen that, but what happens is one person does some good and then says, "Don't pay me back if you can do the good for others." And I remember Philippines has the longest lockdown in the world, 20 months. 20 months stuck at home. And the worst part there is a lot of the villages actually rely on kerosene. So the tourism money that they have is used to light up their villages with kerosene or petrol. Once that stopped, you could see a lot of the villages, especially those with culture, having a hard time. I'll just go ahead. Okay, I can't even, I don't have control now. So what happened was we started this challenge called ah,
Mas de você viver numa escuridão completa, né? Não ter a luz para... Eu, como professora, eu sinto muita dificuldade de quê? Fazer minhas aulas. Comer peixe à noite é muito difícil, porque a gente não tem como tá vendo a espinha, né? Beber um caldo, ele passou uma semana com uma espinha na garganta que escarrava sangue. Não tem uma saúde boa. Quando a gente fica doente... Porque é muito difícil você viver num lugar, né, desses, não ter uma luz, não ter como se movimentar na sua comunidade, sem fazer um trabalho e não poder.
A gente fala no Litro de Luz que o que a gente quer é um mundo em que toda criança possa chegar à noite em casa e ler um livro. Acho que esse é o meu sonho.
Since winning the Zayed Future Energy Prize, Leader of Light has expanded to more than 15 countries.
Desde que a gente começou no Brasil, já foram mais de 6.000 pessoas impactadas. A gente ensina as pessoas a fazerem, torna eles embaixadores, e aí eles podem replicar o que a gente faz com a nossa tecnologia para outras comunidades.
E hoje em dia, com esse litro de luz aí, o perigo zerou, né? Que a gente é uma energia boa, uma energia limpa, né? Que não polui.
A primeira diferença que teve quando o Litro de Luz veio à comunidade foi andar com mais segurança, né, à noite pela comunidade. Foi essa aí a grande diferença. É um projeto que a gente não ganha pra gente. O dinheiro não, mas a gente ganha muito mais, que a dignidade.
What makes this interesting is really the fact that they can use, we use vape batteries, the one for smoking 18650s, or we recycle batteries, cell phone batteries. So we have different stuff that is already used. We also have in India, we have cooperatives of women that pick the parts out from electronic waste. So we don't always have to buy new. We can always give stock of waste products for them to maintain these lights. So Light It Forward basically was from this Pay It Forward. And the idea during lockdown was, I didn't want to go, as I said, I was going bankrupt. I had 212 staff from all over the world. And what I did was, I asked people to build solar lights from home. So in 30 minutes, you would receive a package, and then this package was completely dismantled. And you had to build it with your loved one, you had to build it yourself, and then you would challenge somebody else. This was just an idea. We've never done it before, but we were all stuck at home. Next thing you know, we had from 100 to 700 in the first week. We had about 2,000 to 3,000 in the first month. And we crossed about 25,000 people making the lights from home. So the same way we built in the villages, we were now challenging people stuck at home to be able to build the lights, put it on Instagram, and then challenge somebody else. Now, remember that we've never had so much sales in our lives, from zero to people actually making them from home. The companies that provided us were still operating, and we were still buying all the parts from them. But what was interesting is we started making some of the largest artworks in the world. to celebrate, let's say, 2,000 young people that were studying about climate change inside their home. We would send these 2,000 packages to all of these residents in each city. And then, of course, they're not allowed to gather. So by representation, we would make the artwork for them. This got, again, thousands of views. But the best part is after that, we would donate it to a beneficiary village. Remember, this is COVID. There were no models or ideas. If you can play. So there were no models for social enterprises when we could not relate with corporates, but everybody would be able to make these changes from home. So we started this trend where we challenged each city to build thousands of lights. And basically, we would take over areas that were not occupied to make this artwork. So it was basically the largest human-built billboard in the world. Remember, after that, we would donate everything. So really, it's not an expense. Almost 95% of all that costs would be donated to the lights. We started asking young people, they had messages that they wanted to tell to the world. And so we made this largest tweet in the world where if enough young people actually built it, we would tweet their message. So they had to hand build it. So they're all challenged with their parents to build it or their school. And then we would ask them, during COVID, what message would you like to do for the world? So we have, of course, working towards a sustainable future, depending. But you have to understand that in the developing world, we have what is called the digital divide. Our messages are not seen by many, especially Middle East, Africa, Asia. If we tweet something, we have to boost it for people to see it. But by making the largest tweets in the world, people were sharing it, and it was getting a very strong following. So we started putting this thing called as human-powered messages for the planet. Send us your Twitter-sized messages. So 200 is the maximum. It's all built by hand. So everything there is built by hand by the people, and at the same time, it's 100% human-powered. What's interesting is we started getting invited to. Reason why we're here is because we got invited to COP25. Young people wanted their messages seen, so here in Italy, we made a large solar sign built by 500 youth. Here in Scotland, in St. Andrews, Action Not Words. But so it started getting its own following. And so now we have this thing where even here in Egypt, and I'll show you this thing. It's the largest artwork by the pyramids now. So instead of young people, which sometimes there are restrictions, gathering to protest, we're transferring this into energy to make the lights, build the messages, and at the same time donate the lights. We don't want just awareness. We actually want to create a campaign where the outcome actually lights up the house. So in Africa, we use a lot of kerosene lamps. We convert them. It's very tedious. It's all by hand. It's not drone technology. But I'll tell you what, you get a kid to make the artwork, he will tweet it to everyone that he knows. So, of course, here in Morocco, we do pottery because a lot of women are losing their jobs to plastics. So, so this is our Morocco operations. Nobody wants to donate to solar lights, but everybody wants to donate to make the solar light and be part of the artwork. That's the situation that we find ourselves in. So yeah, uh, how do we choose? Well, every week we choose one artwork to make, and so there's a lot of children competing. So it one of the things really that we're doing is it's so hard to come up with a bottom-up campaign. It's always great to hear, celebrities and I would say boosted campaigns, but often this does not affect really the green economies built by them, technology transferred to the bottom, that the children actually are part of the climate action campaign. Yes, there's a lot of banners, but to make them actually build the light, to actually then put a QR code and tell them where the light goes, it means a lot to the young person that this authenticity, this transparency, that they're actually doing something and not going through somebody to spread their message. So for the artwork in by the Giza pyramids, the word is "the power is yours." 1,200 youth made it. 600 from the Emirates. We went to the schools. They built it by hand, and they tweeted it, and then they challenged other people. 300 from Morocco and 300 from Egypt. Everything was built by their hands. You could still see them, and it's a very powerful message. Afterwards, of course, all of these lights will go down the Nile. So all those lights are usable for 5 years, but they're all repairable. They all have spare parts. And the Power Yours is actually my hero, which was Captain Planet. I don't know if anybody here knows Captain Planet, but he was the first multiracial hero that I ever saw, a brown-skinned superhero where, you have to come together from Asia, from Africa, from America, from Europe, without which you couldn't create the most powerful being to save the planet. And so I created The Power is Yours. And of course, these are the 17 SDG goals. So I did, of course, tell them what the SDG goals are. And of course, to preserve life. So this is apparently the largest solar artwork now in North Africa. And that's it. How does somebody come from the middle of Pacific to be able to have 32 countries around the world? It's really by people understanding that putting the technology in thousands of hands or millions of hands is as valuable as investing in one or two corporate or factories that need to import it. It's more sustainable to invest in green jobs locally and not just make them resellers. So it needs both. But anyway, thank you very much. And I was happy to share our story from darkness to light. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
To have your experience also in Lebanon.
Yes, of course. So the thing with Lebanon is you need to start teaching them how to actually transfer technology. Yeah.
Yeah. But
Yeah. So you have the but the batteries the battery is very available. The battery is 18650. It's the most common battery around there. So sorry, it's a bit loose. I was.
so what we make ourselves, which one?
So you can buy. So the plastic bottles is just to stop the water from coming in. The LEDs from motorcycles everywhere in the world, and then the circuitry is just very very simple parts. So this is the simplest way to build a solar light. You don't need sensors for the light. You just balance the. So let me show you.
When somebody gets this, what do they get it also with the battery?
Yeah, everything. So you'd see how, you would see how simple technologies they could test it. They could test it by hand. So you don't need these factories. You just even for